Hello and welcome back to the Poultry Network Podcast. I'm Tom Woolman, and we haven't got Tom Willings this week, but I'm fortunate enough to be joined by Jake Davies, editor of Poultry Network. Hello, Jake.
Hello, Tom. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Yes. So we thought we'd do something a little bit different this week, isn't that right, Jake? What have you got in store for us?
Yeah, so we're just about 2 weeks post Poultry Network Live, which was in Harper Adams a couple of weeks ago. And for the first time, we had a videographer there. So Finn was there getting shots throughout the day. So we'll be able to share some of those.
He was the really trendy guy, wasn't he? He looked like he definitely shouldn't be at a poultry conference.
You could tell he didn't work in the sector. Well, yeah, not in our circles anyway, Tom. Yeah, so what he also did was filmed Professor David Hughes' keynote speech, and Professor David Hughes has very kindly said we can share it on the podcast. So this really is just an introduction to his video. It's about half an hour long, so yeah, a bit longer than some of our usual episodes, but packed with insights. I mean, what did you think of?
Well, I thought it was brilliant. Yeah, he was the keynote speaker, wasn't he? And he opened the conference, and he really got everyone going because he's fantastically intelligent, but also he's got a wonderfully witty and engaging delivery. And he talked about poultry meat and about eggs. He talked about he's known as Professor Food, isn't he? Really, so he looks at trends, both global trends and UK trends in terms of egg and poultry meat consumption, and he talked a lot about convenience and how convenience is going to continue to come into the home and into food service and what that means for our products. So I definitely recommend everyone listens and if possible watch it so that you can see the slides as well. You could do that on YouTube or probably plenty of the other channels.
I think just YouTube, to be honest.
Okay.
Let's go on the safe side. So that's about it from Tom and I this week. We'll be back next week in the normal format with we've got some really great guests lined up as we go into the autumn, including Live Tech, who are going to be talking about avian influenza. Look out for that one in the coming weeks, and probably return to Tom Willings and Tom Woolman. When they're available, well, I'm happy to step in when they're not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, without further ado, then we'll hand over to Professor David Hughes.
I'll just welcome Professor David Hughes to the stand. Thank you, David.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Delighted to be here. You went down the front.
Yeah, I'll go and sit down now. Thank you.
If you do this, if you present, you're told that don't have more than about 5 slides, and I've got about 50. And they're mainly pictures, and that's on account of Jake. He said this group are better with pictures. So there we go. Let's just whip through them. Oh, up. Right, off we go. One, just starting, that's what's happened to global food prices over a long period of time. You can see on the left-hand side there's a peak. That was March 1973. Actually, that's when me and long-suffering Susan Hughes emigrated to Canada, and I was hired there to look at why were global food prices peaking. It was because the Ukrainian and Russian, to the same country at that stage, they'll soon be the same if you don't watch it, their grain harvest failed, and at the same time there was an oil crisis. And then we saw back went prices, and the next time we saw at the same level, that peak, it was March 2022. What's the picture here, as I say, that over last year, close to 10%, say, global food price increase, but what vexes consumers is that global food prices are 35% higher than they were pre-COVID. And then if I quickly switch to what about here and now and egg and chicken prices, and what do we see? Well, you're in the news one way or another, not least egg prices, of course. So rising egg prices push food inflation to 18-month high. This was a week ago. We're on 5% food price inflation at the moment. So up go food prices. That sort of must be brilliant for food producers around the world. They're sort of celebrating wherever I go. Well, maybe not so. I mean, actually, there may be some egg producers who are celebrating because they're looking pretty good at the moment. But wherever I go, farmers are grumpy. I've just been in New Zealand, they're very grumpy there. Australia the same, Canada. So around the world, farmers have felt the squeeze that up go food prices, but so have their input costs. And in many cases, margins are down. Not necessarily in eggs, but that's another matter. And what's that all about? Well, it's a whole pile of factors. It's not all about this man. But I was taken, my comic on a Saturday is The Economist, and before he came into office, Trump said, this is what I'm going to do in tariffs. And the prescient Cal, the cartoonist for The Economist, said, that's going to hurt American consumers, and it certainly is. And what's the tariff policy now for Trump and the USA? Well, who knows, frankly. I mean, it's just like spinning the wheel. So should we just focus on him and how he can affect world food prices and trade? No, look, for God's sake, he's older than me. And, you know, I'm not in the first flush of youth. And, you know, any chance he may just fall off his perch, but that's another matter. But actually, I think the big issues, if we look at the global picture and going forward, is on the right-hand side here. Every January, I look at what the World Economic Forum has to say about the big risks for business going forward in the short and longer term. And this year, in January, the first 4 were green-related issues. And it's just a reminder to me that, you know, coming our way, we can see it, that sort of the excesses of climate risk, and it will be an increasingly big deal. Okay, what about global meat consumption? Here we go. I mean, the good news, you see, per capita consumption of land-based meats has increased over the last, 12 years. So each year. But the big increases have come from poultry. And so on the right-hand side, where you see the blues and different percent of total, so back in 2013, that poultry's global market share of meat consumption was 36%, and it's grown to 41%. And who's it taken it from? Well, it's taken it from pork, and it's taken it from beef. And lamb has held its own, frankly. But, you know, so is it boo-hiss if you're in the pork and beef business? No. They've increased, but not at the same rate that poultry has, which is intriguing. Moving on. But, you know, as I go around the world and talk to the global meat industry, I'll be doing a lot of that in October, that it always intrigues me that fish is never mentioned. Yet fish is a meat. It's a bona fide competitor to all the meats and eggs, for that matter, anything that's protein. And as Rubberbank point out, that actually you're seeing stronger growth in fish than any other meat at the moment. It's outperforming poultry. And that comes down essentially to 2 species, really. It's salmon and pangasius, or bassa as we know it, or catfish. It's you know, one part of catfish. So watch what's happening, if you will. Many of the places of the world I go to, Asia, for example, it's the preferred meat. That's what they want. Only in Asia? Well, not necessarily. My sister lives in Portugal. Far and away, their preferred meat there is fish and seafood. We're sort of pretty hopeless in the UK in fish and seafood. It's, we want it to look like something that isn't fish. You know, our preference is that it's in fingers, for goodness sake, but that's another matter. What about total meat consumption in the UK on a per capita basis? The fact of the matter is that it's drifting down very, very slowly. And, but the overall meat market is growing. Why is that? Because our population is growing. And it's sort of handy to work out where's the new population coming from and what are their preferences. So there we go. It is shifting down. So population, yeah, then moving on. But, so in the UK, we're eating less meat per person, but we're not eating meat less times. And as they say, there's just less meat in processed meat products. So we're eating more meat encased in pastry, for example. But there's very little. You know, when you go to Greg's, God love them, and it's a lovely pasty, but you know, it's fine, the meat pasty. But I like particularly, should we panic? Are we going off meat? Are we all going vegetarian? Love this. We've never found a cave painting of a salad. You know, the fact of the matter, around the world, people want to eat meat, largely. You know, if you're in certain parts of India, clearly not, or in Bangladesh for that matter. But around the world, as incomes go up, they want to eat more meat. Oh, I say check the median age in your target market. So in our market, we're getting older here. And of course, as you get older, you just happen to eat a little less. And all the major Western economies, if you will, the age range is going up. Let's include Japan. So for example, median age in Japan is over 50, median age. And if you went to, say, Niger in Africa, median age is 15. Just think of it. There we go. So I do a lot of work in the US or in North America, and often we can see what's happening in the US and, you know, can we learn anything from there? You can see in the US that overall, the top line, overall meat consumption continues to increase. I mean, they're well over 100 kg per capita. They're serious meat eaters. When I'm talking at conferences there, I'm surprised they've got the time to come and listen to me. You know, they should be at home, so gnawing their way through the rear end of a steer. But if you can see, poultry back in 1970 was 22 kg, and now it's 53 kg. They're serious poultry consumers. Whereas, just to compare, for us, we were at 18 kg back in 1970, and we're now at 35 kg. I mean, just a reminder to me, there's lots of upside depending in which direction we do go. Moving on. What about eggs? Actually, per capita consumption, top-line market stats show eggs in good shape, although, interestingly, we're below average on eggs per capita per year on a sort of global basis. So there's, again, room for upwards. But it looks good, and on the left-hand side, it's just where are we on egg prices? That actually, egg prices are much higher than they have been in relative history, but actually we are one of the cheaper of the Western economies at the moment. Go to Switzerland and you have to be seriously wealthy to afford eggs. That's another matter. But if you look at the retail value of the egg market, it's sort of brilliant growth over the last few years. Great stuff. But back to consumers. And it doesn't matter where I go in the world, but particularly what were higher income countries, you see this increasing income polarization. So what's happened over the last 5 years that the rich have sort of got richer and the poor have got relatively poorer. In the UK, as I say on the left-hand side, the bottom 10% of households in the UK are operating on about £15,000 per annum. And I would suggest that in the UK, there's probably at least a third of households are suffering right now. I mean, it's really difficult for them to put food on the table. And they've suffered, particularly over the last 5-6 years. So in the UK, the bottom 20% of households spend 20% of income on food, whereas the top 20% spend 5%. As you can see, there's two distinct markets, income haves and income have-nots. And that polarization sets the scene for what's happening in food retailing in the UK and in many other countries. Because at Tesco, they can't say, we're just going to focus on the richer folk. I mean, for them to keep their number one position, they need everybody to go and shop. And as a result, it's that sort of focus on value. It doesn't matter which of the major traditional supermarkets you go to in the UK, then it's all about Aldi and Lidl price matching, etc. That sets the scene. I would suggest that the UK is about the most competitive food price market in the world. I visit hundreds of countries, 120 countries, whatever it may be, and it's intensely competitive here. Last week I was in New Zealand. There are 2 supermarkets that have 80% of the market. It's the same, exactly the same in Australia. Is it competitive there? Well, sort of. But prices in Australia and New Zealand, I don't know. Food prices 20% more than they are in the UK. We're intensely competitive. And so you get meat for the haves and meat for the have-nots. So in that price hierarchy, you've got lamb at the top. You have to be seriously wealthy and probably old to afford lamb. And then it goes down from beef, fish, pork to chicken. As you can see here, this is this week's prices in Sainsbury's. I'm still astonished that you can buy a chicken for under £3 a kilo. I think, really? Dear Lord. Or what's lamb? Lamb at, say, £16 a kilo. Or for those that can afford, fillet steak at, at £56 per kilo. So it's meat for the haves and meat for the have-nots. I say for lamb, I find that worrisome. Lamb prices are so high that every time I see a hearse go by, it really worries me for two reasons. One, it could be a mate of mine. And then secondly, I know for sure that there goes another lamb consumer. And actually, intriguingly, in the UK, the Muslim population in the UK is 6% of total population, and they eat 35% of the lamb. If there wasn't a Muslim population in the UK, we wouldn't have a lamb market. That's by the by. On we go. What about eggs? Well, there's eggs for the income haves and have-nots. Again, it's this week. 14 pence each if you get the Tesco British mixed weight eggs. Or alternatively, you can go to Waitrose where there's a big sign saying, only those that are rich come in. 64 pence an egg. So it's for the rich or for the poor. It depends, which your segment is. Okay, so as I wander around the UK, particularly in the UK, because I think we're advanced, you can decide whether it's advanced or regressed, I just say, okay, what can we learn from, let's take the meat shelves. So this is in Barnstaple. My son has a food business down in North Devon. And here we are in the Tesco Extra. So beef, lamb, and fish each have 3 sets of shelves. Okay. Underneath, pork does substantially better. If you're in the pork business, you've got the same amount of space as beef, lamb, and fish and seafood. Actually, chicken does particularly well too. You've got, in this one, poultry, chicken shop, roast chicken. So, it's indicative of per capita consumption. The amount of shelf space you get, it's just, retailers aren't silly. Of course, we all like beef, but we don't buy a lot of it. And what's more, it's drifting down. But what I do notice around our own supermarkets, it's not about the meat counters or the meat shelves. It's easy meals. That's dinner sorted, snacking and sharing. Prepared meals writ large in our market, or pasta and sauce, soup and quiche, pizza and bread, antipasta. And what we're seeing is food retail and food service converging. If you went back 10 years ago in the food business, you say, well, we've got a retail business and we've got a food service business. Food service for restaurants, retail for the household. They're just coming together. So what are we selling? We're selling meals and meal components. And so food retail and food service conversion. You can see it just writ large. If I think back that my dear late mother, I go back to the 1950s, that she would get on a bike and cycle down to the local grocer, and she used to buy things that, I'd use an old-fashioned term that many of you won't be familiar with. She used to buy things she called ingredients. And of course, we don't buy ingredients now increasingly. You buy the meal component or you buy the meal. And, we may not be happy at that, but that's what's happening, and it's happening big time. I love this so my local Waitrose, if you look down, Thai, Korean, and Indonesian, Chinese, Indian, Italian, and at the back you won't be able to see it. There's a special section for New Zealanders and Australians, but to shorten it, we just call it pies. So, that's what we're buying, for goodness sake. What about eggs? What do I notice there? Well, first of all, every supermarket I looked at more recently, you see empty shelves. They're not fully stacked, okay? And do they sell well? Is it a picture of you think, wow, that's theatre. That's real heavy-duty merchandising. No, they score about 1 out of 10, frankly. And it's often the case worldwide. The one down the bottom is Argentina, which is it was recently. So, could, like my school report used to be, could and should do better, frankly. So putting some theatre into retailing, I don't look at the UK or North America for that matter, or Canada. Just look in other parts of the world, not least in Asia, where they celebrate eggs. You know, you go there and think, wow, that's something. On the right-hand side in China, they're huge egg consumers, and there's 1.3 billion of them, for Christ's sake. I measured it out, there was 30 meters of shelf space for eggs. It was astonishing. Up on the left, Spain are good at it. You look at that. That's the way to sort of get some excitement into eggs. Thailand good at it too. I like the Indian Rahul eggs. You know, if you want an omelette, then there's your choice there. And here we go. Egg packaging for every consumer segment in Panama. It may not be appropriate, but it catches the eye, frankly. There we go. On we go. So I've been tracking, if I look back over the last year, then a company which you might not know called Couche-Tard, which is a Quebec convenience store, huge company, and in the UK and elsewhere, Circle K. Would you know Circle K? Circle K. And they were trying to buy 7-Eleven. And 7-Eleven is in, 25 countries. It's huge. They failed to buy it. Couche-Tard, 47 billion, and 7-Eleven said no. Why would they want to buy it? Because they look at what 7-Eleven is doing in Japan and Thailand, and I've got a Thai example here, and they've become the snack and meal solution store for the under 40s. And it's sort of fabulous what they're doing. And so a Couche-Tard, which is if you're in convenience, in history, what were your products? Gas, so petrol, tobacco, and booze. And all three of those are going backwards. And so they're looking at Thailand and looking at Japan and saying, yeah, there's much bigger margins in good, fresh, prepared snacks and mini meals. And that was their big play. And I'm thinking, just watch that, because I see it happening. Here's the Co-op just very recently in the UK, so up their next gen on Go Microstore format in the UK. If I look at what's happening demographically, so the Co-op has seen what 7-Eleven has done with the ready-to-go food in Asia, and we're just accelerating our move in that direction. Because we're at this sort of generational shift here, where I'm an early baby boomer, for God's sake, I'm that age. And you can see the world is changing, that it's now increasingly about alphas, Gen Z, etc., and they think differently particularly the baby boomers. I mean, I like this, so Generation Alpha. So on the back there is my 13-year-old grandson, and my son Blake sent me this. That was his birthday. And I like Blake's phrase. He said, we've got a nest of boys for the night. And then I looked at it and I thought, look at them all. There's there's 6 or however many there are there. All of them are looking at their phones and looking at the TV at the same time. And it just strikes me that, of course, they're digital natives, and they define convenience completely different than their parents, and in a different world to me. So as that group just move forward and start to earn income, when they say they want it now, they want it right now. And then think of the impact that has on shopping behavior, etc. Are they going to be going out and buying ingredients and putting them and mixing them and making a meal? Well, maybe once a month and making a big deal of it. So what's the impact on our industry? You've got to work that out. And so those food to go, if you will, it's particularly popular among Gen Z and millennials. Gen Zs are 13 to 30, so under 40s are much, much more likely to be buying ready meals, snacks, mini meals, meal components. And it's their time, frankly. And you just see it in our own market. Here we are, just quickly going through these, the gym kitchen. Does chicken do well on this? I would say so. Snacks, I mean, for goodness, the same. Chicken bites, fridge raiders. It's Pilgrims, which is JBS. I mean, JBS is the largest food company in the world. I mean, its turnover is close to 90 billion US. Absolutely the Brazilian company, and it is everywhere where I go. Go to America and see what Tyson's Tyson's Kansas City Chiefs nuggets. And then into crisps or chips, depending how you say it, and it's chicken. It's chicken. On the left-hand side, I say that Purdue, they've got enough cheek for another row of cheek that they just launched sea creature chicken nuggets. I mean, is that bloody cheeky or what? I mean, Jesus. But for egg people, for working dogs only, it's dog treats. And then on the right-hand side, at home, I live in Monmouth, just in Wales, just on the Welsh border, and there's me, long-suffering Susan, and Mabel. And as I'm traveling around the world, it's slightly worrisome. I'll ring Susan and say, how's your day? She said, oh, we've had a good day. So she means her and Mabel. And Mabel's got a per capita consumption of chicken which is way above average for the UK. And I'm serious. If you look down there, for £3 a kilo, Mabel gets her way through a kilo of Tesco British. I'm not proud of this. In fact, it's embarrassing. I mean, the fact of the matter is that that's cheaper than, on the right-hand side, butcher's tripe dog food is the same price. I mean, it's what? And I would suggest in many countries, particularly Western countries, where the dogs have become unequivocally family, that they're major consumers of your product, whether it be eggs or chicken for that matter. So, back to weaving in eggs here. No offense, egg demand is buoyant in the UK, but we're really conservative on egg snacks. Take a look around Asia, Spain, Latin America for egg snacks and mini meal ideas. I mean, there's many countries, they're so much better than we are in sort of using eggs. It's been a stronger part of their culture in a wider sense than haven't you had your egg for breakfast? And there's so much to learn. The Korean sandwich, the egg drop has got a lot of coverage more recently. So just get out of the UK and see how other people use eggs. So on the left-hand side, I'm a Canadian as well as a Brit, and I was in McDonald's probably 25 years ago, and I saw chicken for breakfast, yes please. And I thought, chicken for breakfast? I mean, for somebody my age, it's chickens for bloody Christmas. Right, dear Lord. And now it's integral. It's it's a breakfast option. So I'm saying, add another eating occasion if you can, like brekkie or anytime snacking. On the right-hand side for eggs, again, go to the top 10 countries that consume the most eggs per capita and find out how they use it. What can we learn? I mean, why do they use so many? It may be income related, or it may be they just have better ideas how to use eggs, frankly. Or, we're all into AI now. I put into ChatGPT, this is hardly big time, give me some tagline options for a hard-boiled egg snack. Small egg, big power, pure protein, grab, goes, fuel that fits in your hand, the smartest snack under a shell, etc. And there's so much we can do. If you're not in the snack bit, you need to be in the snack business, because snacks and mini meals, as we move forward, are increasingly such an important part of the overall food consumption, by the by. And of course, meat and eggs are protein, but there's way more now. For somebody, again, my age, I mean, dairy didn't used to be something you sold on the basis of its protein, and now it's big time. So, it becomes a competitor, if you will. Power is on your plate. As I go around the world, people seem to understand that what they put in their tummy has an impact on their own health and the health of the planet. They say that, but do they do anything about it? Oops. No, there's a real big gap. And yet, if we look at the UK, I do a lot of work in Australia, so this was just to point out, Aussies and Brits, lovely people, are all as round as pudding. And so, you know, we have this sort of obesity crisis, if you will. How does that affect our industry? And then suddenly we have the GLP-1s, we have the anti-obesity medication, AOMs, hitting the market. And intriguingly, I think it's positive for both poultry and eggs, frankly. If you're in salty snacks and what have you, that's hard luck, or even confectionery. But if you're in chicken and eggs, I think it gives you a little boost. And just wait until AOM, so anti-obesity meds, are in pill form. And then you'll see, it'll really just pick up big time, I suggest. Here's Rabobank saying, yes, Maha, make American healthy again, movement increases chicken demand. And then you can see FMCG, the big food companies, saying, hang on, is it a threat or an opportunity? So here's Conagra and Nestle, for example, coming out with a whole range of products which you can attach to your use of the anti-obesity medication. And they tend to be chicken-based. Okay, on sustainability, the desire to be sustainable is at similar levels, but it's falling away. And why is it falling away? Have people lost interest? No, they've got too much on their plate. There's a sort of notion, a scientific notion about the pool of worries. And you can only hold a certain number of worries in that pool at any one time. And they say, Jesus, we've got the mortgage, energy's going up, what about the children's education? Of course I'm interested in sustainability and the environment, but I'll get back to it. You know, just give me a break for the moment. I'm trying to get by right now, and they will come back. But they find it, but encouragingly, those that are most interested are younger people. And that doesn't surprise me in the least, because if you're an older person, me, you know, an old baby boomer, then you're slightly embarrassed because, hang on, we became aware of what was happening, we did bugger all about it, and we don't have to fix it. You know, we'd be long gone. But if you're like 25, you think, hang on, this is an issue that we're going to have to handle. And they're sort of well aware of that, I would suggest. But people find it difficult to shop sustainably. They say, look, it's relatively expensive, I'm no expert, how do I find it? I'm too busy, just I'll come back to it. Okay, almost done. If I look at the world's biggest packaged food companies, there we are, JBS at the top, you know, that great Brazilian mammoth. But I've noticed that 4 of the largest, this is, you know, take all the big deal, you know, the Kraft Heinz, all together, and it's, there are 4 of the largest food companies are protein companies. So JBS, what have we got here? Tyson chicken, Marfrig from Brazil, and have I missed somebody? JBS, 1, Marfrig, 2, WH Group, which is the largest pork company in the world. So 4 of the top 10. Protein is a big, big deal. And I just don't see those big guys getting smaller. So it's just a reminder that you have to keep your eye on what's happening globally as they decide that they just want to acquire. And the example I'm giving here is JBS wants to become a global leader in egg production. It acquired 50% of South America's largest egg producer, and suddenly it's JBS, which started as a small beef slaughterer in Brazil, is now the biggest egg producer in South America. It's the biggest meat producer in the world. It's moved into salmon and other fish elsewhere. The big tend to get bigger. And you know, I'm taking Cal Maine, not that I've done work with them, but I'm intrigued with them. First of all, they had a bloody good year this last year. And that Cal Maine in the US produces 13.6 billion eggs per year. Jesus. It's approximately the same size as the total UK egg market. And they have 20% egg market share in the USA. And so what I noticed with these bigger companies is that they start to cover every aspect of their protein. So it's not just eggs, they've got anything to do with eggs or anything to do with chicken. I'm saying down the bottom, mind you, Noble Foods is no bantam, And what's more, it's got more interesting processed egg range than Cal-Maine, as far as I'm concerned. But it doesn't matter what part of the food industry. I just see, it could be avocados, and the best avocado company, well, they'll do guacamole. They'll do Mexican-type foods, etc. So they can go to Tesco and say, we can do it all. We can do it all. And I think we'll see it happening in eggs and chicken. Okay, just to finish, on time here. Globally, for the future for chicken and eggs, frankly, it's a delight to talk to you lot, because I think in general, it's set fair. We've got a lot to offer on price. In terms of protein, you can't do much better. Nutrition, protein, low fat, snack friendly, particularly chicken, but in eggs we need work on it. Chicken carries flavor well, it's accepted across the family, it's convenient relative to other proteins. You try and make lamb convenient, that's a struggle, Jesus. Chicken, very air friable, and eggs microwavable. Enviro credentials actually pretty good on the carbon footprint, but need work on waste pollution, clearly. But I say don't frighten the daylights out of consumers with regard to technical advances, for example, gene editing. Keeping the hat on AI, don't scare people. Both avian influenza, that would help, wouldn't it? And artificial intelligence. And maybe the most important thing I'm going to say, remember, I think we're moving towards more snack-orientated, more mini meals, and I think that's huge opportunity for the two industries we've got here. But through time, as the proportion of chicken and eggs purchased by consumers is in value-added form, I ask the question, where will the raw material have been produced? Because if I look at your basic trade statistics, I can see like chicken imports going up, egg imports going up, and the fact of the matter is when you pick up a snack product, you don't immediately say, I wonder where this was produced. It's gone. And, does it come from Brazil, Thailand, Poland, Ukraine, elsewhere? And I think that's going to be the struggle, to make sure that, we have pretty high self-sufficiency in both eggs and chicken, but as we move in this direction, we will have more competition from outside. And that's me done. Thank you.